Loren Gray, welcome to Live from Bed.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to meet you. I can't believe that you're one of the most followed TikTokers out there. What's that like? When you post, is it more pressure than it was when you were first starting?
Sometimes, but not really. I don't know. I feel like it's been part of my life for a very long time. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the more followers you get, I feel like I would be inclined to be like, okay, but now there's so many people watching. I need to change my stuff.
Yeah. Yes and no. I think part of it also is just like it happened so gradually.
Yeah.
So I just kind of was constantly acclimating to it as I got older. And now there's definitely like a sense of responsibility that comes along with it. But outside of that, I don't know. Unless you until I see it in person, like the moments where I see it in person is when it becomes very real. But outside of that, I don't know.
Is it weird for you when people are like, I saw your TikTok and you're like, whoa, I did not realize.
Yes, sometimes it kind of depends on what the TikTok was about. I don't know. It depends.
Yeah, because there are some where you're just like lip syncing, and then there's some where you're being very open and vulnerable. Yeah. So I feel like when they see, it's like with this show, if someone's like, oh, I listened to that episode. When it's something that's like more vulnerable, you're like, oh, I did not intend for you to see that. But
yeah, but it's nice. It's nice. I don't know. I've always liked it. Yes, you can come sit with me.
He's like, oh my God, look, he's making himself. Once he sees a blanket, it's over.
Okay, you can come in.
He loves a blanket.
Nice.
So I want to talk about your new movie.
Okay.
Called Incoming.
Yes.
So it's basically about this group of freshmen that go to a party. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like Superbad adjacent, American Pie adjacent, but it's wonderful. I loved it so much. And you are unbelievable in it.
Thank
and so
you.
funny.
Thank you.
And just to give a little spoiler, there is a scene with Taco Bell and an accident happened.
It's
an accident of sorts. There's some bodily fluids.
It's poop.
It's poop.
It's poop,
just
guys.
Poop, period. End of
I'm
story.
very comfortable with the concept of poop now.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I actually love talking about poop.
Really?
With your girlfriends, do you talk about poop?
So this is actually really funny that you say this. There's like a running joke before I even started filming this movie or even got the role with my makeup artist and my hairstylist that I always end up talking about poop one way or the other. Very open about it. But this was serendipitous because It's like one of my favorite topics.
You were born for this role.
I was born for this.
No,
yes.
truly.
I've been waiting for this one.
With my girlfriends, I remember before squatty potties existed, we would talk about like best positions to poop. It was like
what do you think about that? Like what?
I love my feet up. I love a squatty potty moment.
Really?
But I have no problem going.
Yeah, me neither. Like I go multiple times a day sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm very healthy.
Oh, I love multiple times a day. That's like a great day I'm having if that happens. But like my husband literally will be in the bathroom for like 8 business days going to the bathroom. I'm like, what?
Not me. When I'm ready, I'm ready.
Me too.
I'm in and out.
I know it's coming. I take 2 seconds. You wouldn't even know it happened.
Yeah, same.
So, but tell me this, because obviously it wasn't real poop, unfortunately. What was it made out of?
It was made out of, well, in the beginning for the first half of the movie, or I guess like the first 3/4 of the movie, it was made out of peanut butter, coconut oil, applesauce, like a mixture of sorts.
Okay.
It was like crunchy peanut butter though, I think.
Oh my God.
And then halfway through, or like 3/4 of the way through, they changed it and put sunflower oil in it, and I was allergic to it. So now I know I'm allergic to sunflower oil.
That's how you found out.
Yeah, because it was on my skin, and I started getting hives, and they were like, "Oh, we changed the mixture today."
No way.
Yeah, but it was
to make
fine.
it runnier.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why. They worked really hard on that concoction, and it was funny because it's really funny seeing like a room of professional adults like really being so passionate about like a bucket of poop, because it would just come in like a painter's like bucket. And they had to take pictures of me every day to make sure that there was consistency.
Right.
So they would look at the reference and put it on, and it was quite the operation.
In person, because I know what it looked like on camera. I don't know like what was fixed in post. Was it like a light brown?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it looked like peanut butter and applesauce
Standard
mixed
diarrhea.
together. Standard
Did it
stuff.
stink?
No, it smelled very sweet.
Yeah, because it's like missing all the bile in the bottle. Okay,
right. It's missing all the stuff. Yeah.
Right.
It hasn't gone through the digestive tract yet. So it's just...
Damn. Have you ever like had an experience? I've shit myself one time.
I actually shit myself not that long ago.
Really?
Yeah, I was really sick, and I got up in the middle of the night, and I made it maybe 2 steps before it was game over.
I lied to you. I've actually pooped myself twice. One time, a doctor prescribed me like Miralax when like I certainly did not need it. And I was stunned to my very core. I was like at a party and I was like, oh, I mean, no one knew but me, but like, you have to like go home immediately. Like, that's not something you can like clean up and recover from.
I've peed myself a lot.
Oh, me too.
I peed myself in summer camp and like I was wearing jean shorts and I was so mortified. I just reeked of like piss and I was trying to like dry myself in the air dryer, like in the bathroom. But yeah, no, I actually also, I shit myself twice this year, and that's really, maybe it's because the movie's coming out. My body's like, I don't know.
Now you gave us permission.
It's like feeling some type of way, but
it's method. It's very method.
It is, and that's exactly what I tell myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what's been going on. I'm okay now, but like there's been a couple times where I just did not make it.
You know what? There are two types of people in this world: people that have shit themselves and people that haven't. And like, I just honestly, the former is better to me.
Better stories,
better personality. You know, you're just like, you get it.
I just have a better personality, I guess, like, because of it.
100%.
Yeah, as a result.
So when you were reading the script, were you like hesitant or were you like, oh no, I fucking need to do this?
No, I was so excited about it. I wanted to do it so bad because I feel like no one would have expected that from me. And so putting myself out there in that way was really exciting.
I love it. It's iconic. It really is. Because I feel like that's what people like. That's a moment that people are going to be talking about from it. And like, you're so gorgeous. So like, to do something like that, you're like, I'm human. You know, people I feel like will enjoy that.
Yeah, and it was really fun to film. And John and Dave, the directors, asked so many times if I was comfortable with the whole thing. And I was like, no, like, I want to do it.
That's amazing. You're like, I'm game.
Yes, absolutely.
Did it feel like summer camp filming it? Because it's so many kids, but not kids. You guys are adults. But like, you know, like what was the age range?
So when we were shooting, I was 20.
Okay.
And then the other two boys were, I want to say like 15, 16.
Wow. Because they look really young. Yeah.
Yeah, they're young, but they're very sweet kids. So yeah, the boys were like, you know, high school age.
Okay.
I was a little bit older. And then, you know, the extras, there was all different walks of life. Every now and then I'd walk past an extra and I'd be like, you don't belong in high school.
You're 45. Yeah.
I already felt like I was pushing it. And every now and then I walk past and would be like, yeah.
You know, when I was watching it, I was like, I thought to myself, like, God damn, I think I'm past, I couldn't pass as like anything under 28.
See, but I actually feel like I look younger now than I did when I was in school.
Interesting.
I don't know what it is.
Did you wear more makeup?
I did. Yeah. I wore more makeup and like my eyebrows were thicker. But like, I feel like now I look a little younger than I did. Because when I was little, it used to be, oh my gosh, you look so much older.
Oh, okay.
And then now like people don't believe me when I give them my ID at a bar. I'm like, I have to convince people.
That's
and I'm
my
like,
fucking dream.
I just have like opposite issues. Yeah, I guess.
I always get told I look exactly my age. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that, but that's fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to take that either.
You know, I'm like, shit.
I mean,
I'm 30.
You look great.
Thank
I would
you
be like,
so much. No, I'm like, I feel like I always look my age. But then I was thinking the other day, like, if that time ever came, like any bouncer listening, please God, card me. But I was always thinking, like, if I ever forgot my ID, how would I prove that I was over 21? Do you ever think about that?
Yes, I'm too chicken though. Like I'll just be like, it's fine. I'll have a Diet Coke.
I'll go fuck
it's okay.
myself. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do.
Did you have a big 21st birthday? Like I was thinking, okay, I'd show them pictures of my 21st birthday or something.
Oh, true. Yeah, I went to Vegas.
I did too.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was fun.
I also have my passport on my phone, so that would be
okay. Word.
I feel like I could get away with it.
And you can look yourself up on like Wikipedia.
I had border control do that one time.
Really? And they looked you up and they were fine.
Yeah.
No way.
They thought I was running away to the UK. I was going to visit my boyfriend at the time. And they were like, they stopped me. They put me aside. I was crying. This girl came up to me while I was crying. She was like, I'm sorry. Like, I watch your videos, whatever. And they looked me up and then they let me go. But they thought I was like running away to the UK.
Thank God for that girl.
Like, yeah, thank God for her.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Do you like getting stopped? Do you like people like confronting you in public?
Yeah, confronting sounds like
yeah, they're gonna beat you up. Yeah, no. Do you like people coming to visit you in public, coming up to you?
More so now that I'm older. When I was younger, I think people had a little more room to be not so nice to me, and I was always very intimidated when people came up to me. And I feel like now that I'm older, I've been doing this longer. There's more about me in the universe. I don't have bad experiences anymore. But when I was younger, it definitely put a bad taste in my mouth because people were not the nicest usually.
Interesting. Like they'd come up to you and like try to start shit?
Not necessarily, but like people would take pictures of me like right in my face.
Right.
They're like laughing right in my face, or people laughing with their friends. And I'm like, I still to this day, I won't go to stores by myself. I don't go to grocery stores. And it's not even that I'm like afraid that something's gonna happen. It's just I think I have this like subconscious anxiety of like going into a store and being made fun of.
No, it's weird like being watched. And even if two girls are huge fans of yours, but they're talking to each other and you can't hear them, you're obviously gonna assume like they're laughing at you or they're like, you know.
And even now, if I'm 22 and if I see like two 16-year-old girls like chuckling and looking at their phones and looking at me, I'm like, I'm anxious. And I'm like, I'm too old to be feeling that way. But
no, can I tell you my toxic trait? I look at this. I don't know if I have like some arrested development issue, but like I look at 16-year-olds and I'm like, we're peers. I'm like,
I feel like I stopped aging at 17.
Right? Like we all still feel like a 17-year-old inside.
Yeah.
I can't look at a 16-year-old and be like, I mean, maybe now a little bit because they're half my age, but I'm like, I feel like we're competitive still, you know what I mean? Like, they're like, bitch, you're so old. Like I just feel like I'm still that age, and I'm like with my mom at a coffee shop or something trying to like look cool.
Well, did you go to public school, private school?
Private school.
Okay, but you went all the way up till high school?
Kindergarten through 12th with the same group of people.
Okay, see, I left school to be homeschooled in 8th grade. So my normal interactions with kids my age stopped there. And then also with COVID and like things like that you just like, I'm having a really hard time coming to terms with like, oh, I'm going to be 23 and then I'm going to be 24. And then like that, I can only go up from here. Like, that's
Amen.
it.
I know. And it's scary. Like you wake up from COVID and you're like, oh shit, I just lost those years. Because this movie is so much about high school. I went through an awkward stage consistently, I think, until like yesterday. Like you know what I mean? I really like, I was not cute in high school. Like I was definitely still like puffy and, you know, I had braces and all of that. I feel like that's what you missed out on. People having a lot of documentation. Well, I guess, you know what? People have a lot of documentation of you in high school, that age.
A lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all over the place. And I guess like, I feel like I had more of my awkward moments in like 8th grade. I would say up until I was like 16, I was figuring it out a little bit.
Me
and then
too.
After that, but it's weird to me now because when I used to go to the store or whatever and people would come up to me, they would be my age. So they were like 16. So now I get recognized at the counter or by the waitress.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've never had a job like that, right? I never had that experience. So it's so crazy to me to see my friends and see like my peers working jobs that are where they're like jobs that to me, I'm like, oh, adults do that because my growth is
No,
so
are you in my
stunted.
brain? I literally, a couple weeks ago, I went on like a bunch of meetings just to like talk about the show and like whatever with all these like publications and shit. And I was so nervous before these meetings. Like I was like, oh, I want to like look like an adult. I'm like, Jade, you have like a gray hair. Like you are, you know, we've landed. But I got there and I was expecting the like head of talent or head like these big titles. And they were like, oh my God, I want a broad with your best friend. Like they all were my age. And I was like, this is fucking crazy. Like when did we get here? When did we all get older? I'm still 17. So you really took off, right? Like when you were around 12, 13. So you started posting on what was then called Musical.ly, which is crazy. When did that switch happen? Like, I don't even know, from Musical.ly to TikTok.
I think it happened in like 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was like a good 6 months where no one really knew what to do on the platform because it was changing so quickly. But yeah, I think it was 2019.
Were you nervous when that switch happened that like your followers would, or like that you wouldn't be able to do this new platform, or like was it pretty much the same?
I didn't know that it was going to become what it is. Right. I kind of thought that they were going to like, because they sold it, I thought they were going to sell it and it was kind of going to not really be a thing anymore. So I kind of stopped posting. So I was like, I don't really know what to do with this. No one else really knew what to do with it. And then I started catching back on to what was happening. But I don't know. I've never really put too much pressure on any of it because anything could happen. You know what I mean? So
that is like a scary thought. And I want to get more into that in a minute. But so when you were first doing it, you posted kind of on accident, right?
Yeah.
So you were like trying to save to your camera roll, like these videos of you, and you posted them. Were you terrified when that happened? Or like, was it pretty immediate, like the audience response?
Yeah. So it's the same as the free page now, but it would just say that your video was featured. So it would be featured and then it would be, but I didn't know any of that.
Okay.
So I started getting follow requests on my Instagram and I was like, where are these coming from? And then by the time I figured it out, I think someone told me I had like 30,000 followers on Musical.ly, which is now TikTok.
Then also is crazy. Like it's crazy now, but that's really crazy then.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then there was actually kids in my school that had more followers than that. They like
really
everyone was just like this. And then once I started doing it and sort of doing really well at it, then everyone deleted their accounts and it wasn't cool anymore. And I was like,
well, that's what I was going to ask you. What was that like in school? Because I feel like anyone that's on social media, literally anyone, has some degree of a double life to an extent, right? Like there's your online presence and then there's your real life presence. And I feel like with you starting that so young, that must have been disorienting to an extent for you and people around you.
Yeah, there was a lot of things about it that were, because I at this time, I didn't really watch a ton of influencers weren't really a thing. There was YouTubers and I watched that kind of thing. I watched like Jenna Marbles. I watched some people who would game, but it wasn't the way it is now. So I didn't know that it was a job for people. And when everything started picking up, I mean, obviously it didn't go over very well at school because I ended up leaving. So
really?
Yeah, spoiler, I left because it was awful.
What would they do? Like, they would just be like, oh, like she's lame for posting?
Yeah, it was there. Oh my gosh. People would come to my cheer games and like stand at the barricades or sit in front and make fun of me.
Joke's on them. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it would suck because I'd be like, I'd be cheering for, I was cheer captain in my eighth grade year.
Yeah.
And I'd worked really hard for that because I love cheering. And I was cheer captain in my 8th grade year, and the people that I was cheering for were making fun of me, but I had to keep cheering. So that sucked. You know, of course, people online, people tweeting, saying things, making things up.
Right.
So there was a lot at that time. Like my mom was going to people's houses and being like, you need to tell your kids to stop because it was so bad.
It was relentless.
Yeah. Like, and there was a night where I was like, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm done. And there was like one girl who I had met on Instagram who like stayed up talking to me, and she's actually an influencer now too, which is wild. And she lives in LA, but at the time we were both just like kids.
Yeah.
And yeah, I left school and there was a couple, I'd say like a year where I was just constantly live streaming, constantly on the internet. Cause I had, all my friends were in school. I had like a couple friends and they were in school all day. So, and they were getting made fun of for being friends with me at school.
Wow.
So there's a lot happening, but I'm glad that I kept doing it.
So that girl that influencer now, that was kind of like, you need to keep doing this. Like she was really helpful.
She was really helpful. And my parents were like, you know, you don't have to do it. You like, but there's I'd kind of already done it. Like everyone already felt some type of way about me. So like, you know, what am I going to do? Go back to school with my head down and be like, no, sorry, guys.
That is like, that's iconic because like I think a lot of people might be so freaked out and want to be normal. Even if you're like extraordinary in any capacity, you just want to be like everybody else.
Yeah. And I went from like, I got made fun of in like 5th grade because I was not a cute kid. Like that was just straight up bullying. But then when I left school and then I went back to school and then I was made fun of for the complete opposite reason. Right. And that was really hard to grasp mentally.
Yeah.
And I ended up, after I left, I moved to LA after like a couple years because all of my friends, all of my work, my whole life was out there.
Right.
Or out here. So it just made sense. But yeah, it was a rough sort of.
That's hard because I feel like online you're getting all this positive reinforcement, right?
Yeah,
so,
and negative. I mean, you're just kind of getting it from all angles, but I love doing it. And there was other hurdles too. Like, you know, my getting paid. My parents are not in the entertainment industry, so I didn't have the luxury of like having that sort of structure when it came to like them knowing how to navigate. They were learning at the same time as me. Like I was 13 coming to my parents being like, Android wants to pay me $200 to post a video. And my parents were like, what? Wow. And so they were learning as I was learning. And I'm really grateful that they even like put in the effort to help or try.
Did they ask to like see your videos?
I mean, my mom downloaded everything. As soon as she figured out what was going on, she downloaded everything. She'd be like, take this down, take that down. Because I mean, I loved acting a little older than I was. And there was some things that I'm glad that she was like, girl, no.
But we were all doing that just like in a different, like I was on photo booth or whatever doing that. That's when you test your boundaries. That's when you first start to like experience the sexuality in any capacity. So like you're just, that was your medium to like express. I mean, I think you're lucky that there were some videos that
I mean, it would be different, but then there was people watching and my mom's like, all right, let's reel it in.
Was there a lot of, at the beginning, was it mostly like girls around your age watching your videos and interacting? Or was it like, was there a male presence?
I mean, there's always been a male presence. And I think with any girl that gains any sort of attention online, there's always going to be that. But for the most part, the fans that I was interacting with on a daily basis that were like, you know, commenting and that I was running into in person were all girls my age. And it still is. It's like girls that are my age.
Yeah, that are like going through the same things that you're going through. And so I feel like that just makes your experience, you could be going to the same school with the same people and experiencing the same things in your day to day, but having this internet life and having to navigate that, especially in the early days, you know, now, fortunately, there are a lot of influencers talking about hate online. There's like a lot of more of that. But when you were one of the very few people that made it online and were popular, that must have been impossible. Like being 13, if someone told me like my shirt was on backwards, I would have collapsed. You know what I mean? Crumbled. Having to deal with like public perception at that young of an age must have been impossible.
I mean, yes, it definitely was. And especially once I moved to LA, I encountered a lot of issues because then you're surrounded by not even just like the online sort of criticism or critiques, but then just the culture of LA. And I love LA, but it's a different culture. And it's like you either keep up or that's it. And so I was trying really, really hard to keep up, and I didn't really it was definitely a culture shock. And I'm glad that I had that experience early because I think I was able to sort of grow in LA instead of like trying to come out here as an adult. And that kind of culture shock, I kind of grew up in LA.
Totally.
But that definitely threw me for a loop in so many different ways.
Yeah, because you didn't start acting until later. So like at first you were just homeschooled and just online.
Kind of. I started, I would take acting classes when my mom would drive me up to New York when I was like 11, 12. I would do acting classes, but I wasn't like auditioning or anything. I was just doing it because I enjoyed it. And I was doing some like modeling things here and there in New York, but nothing like what I do now. Like it was not the same.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but your mom quit her job to move out here with you, right?
Yeah.
Was there, maybe it was unspoken, but was there pressure on you to like make it because she had made that sacrifice?
Yes and no, not pressure from them. Only the pressure that I put on myself. You know, my parents stayed together. My parents are still together. And my dad stayed home for like the 3 years that my mom was out here with me. And he would come visit when he could. But both my parents up until then had worked full time. So my mom quit her job. But I never felt like if it didn't work out, I wouldn't have a place to land. Everything that I had at home was still going to be there. And I would have figured it out. But I wanted to make it work because I didn't want it to be in vain. When everyone's in your whole family is making sacrifices for you.
Yeah.
So there was definitely pressure on my end, and I guess I just had to really go for it. I don't know, but I've always been a hard worker. I don't think there ever would have been a universe in which I wouldn't have pushed myself to the highest degree always.
Right. So there was like this underlying faith and just like belief in yourself that if the one thing didn't work out, you'd find a way to make something else
I mean,
work.
not always, but I also just, because I grew up in it, like I started social media when I was 13, and that was kind of all that I knew in the beginning and teenage years and sort of like those formative years of my life. So there was never an option in my head of it not working because I didn't do all this for nothing. And I also didn't know what my life was without it. So there was no option. There was no like, oh, I just want to do something else right now. There was never that.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess like that also like your generation, like growing up, everyone was online. As much as you can say that there are two lives you lead, which there are, it's like, you know, there's real life in that. It's kind of the same.
I mean, for me, it's always been very much what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
And I mean, of course, when I'm by myself, when I'm at home, I'm not like as talkative or open, but it's not, I never really had an opportunity to like form much of a character. The only like character like show that I felt like I was putting on was this like confidence and all those things that I didn't necessarily always feel. But as the longer I was on social media, the more that those sort of things are like acceptable.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like it all kind of runs together for me.
When I think of myself online versus not, I think I'm braver not online than I am online. Yeah.
I'm the opposite.
No, that's what I was assuming. Yeah. Because I feel like a lot of people are like that, whether it's like Beyonce and Sasha Fierce. Like she thinks, you know, like her persona when she's singing and on stage and stuff is braver or more outgoing than her. And that's how you feel.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because when you expel so much energy all the time, it's hard to carry that into like when I'm by myself or when I'm with my friends. It also kind of, I'm very much a chameleon with people.
Yeah.
I match people's energy.
Me too, dude.
Constantly. So if someone, it depends on who I'm around.
Isn't that intense? Like, do you think you're an empath?
Yes.
Yeah.
So hard. And
it's crazy because even you'll just be sitting in the same room with someone and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I feel like this intense energy and it doesn't belong to you.
Yes.
But it's hard to like make that realization.
Absolutely. That's always been a thing for me, but I just can't, I conform to whatever situation I'm in. And
which is great in a lot of ways, but also.
Yeah, but also, I mean, I always keep the same, I guess, integrity of like who I am as a person, but just like my energy shifts depending on who I'm talking to. And I think that's also just me trying to like reflect people's energy so that they like me.
Of course.
Because I've always had issues with like, do they like me? I don't know. So yeah, that's always been a thing for sure.
It's really hard, especially like when you can just log on, post a video and get like that immediate validation, you know, from people. But then you go in person and you're like, am I enough? Am I the same person they think I am offline? Like, do they like me as much? And also when you can sense people's energy and when you're an empath and you can kind of, it's not like you can read other people's minds. It's not what I'm saying, but you can energetically pick up on what they want you to say.
Okay, I'm going to say something. I talk about this all the time. And because you're saying this, I think you're going to get it. Do you sometimes get frustrated or not even just frustrated, but like pick up on when someone's saying something with like, but they mean something else?
Yes.
Like, if someone wants you to do something and they're saying this because they want you to do this, I constantly, every conversation I have, I'm thinking about like, what are you really saying?
What are you really saying? Yes.
And that gets on my nerves sometimes because it irritates me even more when people think they're being slick about it. And then I have to play into it's like
that happens to me all the time. And then you tell them what you assume that, you know, you kind of like break that wall and they're like, oh no, I wasn't going to say that. And you're like, yeah, 100% you are. You're trying
even
to
if
get
you
me
weren't,
to do
your
that.
subconscious was thinking it. And I was there with you.
Yes. Like, it does sometimes feel like, and I'm going to sound crazy, but that you can read their mind to an extent. And other people like that don't have that ability or like don't have that burden as it is at sometimes. They are like, no, you can't read everyone's mind. You're like, no, I actually can.
Yeah.
I know if someone likes me. I know if someone liked what I said. And being that in tune, especially as a woman, it's overwhelming. And like, I don't know about you, but like for every hour I socialize, I need like 48 hours to be by myself, like complete sensory deprivation.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I feel like I can hear like the voices of the world. Like I can just hear everybody. I don't know how much of that is me assuming or what's real and what's not. Because I do feel like when you're an empath, you know it. You know that you have that ability. So it's hard to like convince yourself that that's not true, or, you know.
And there's so many things that come with it that you don't. Also, like I've been talking about this a lot too recently, but like the self-analyzing of it all, because you analyze other people so much and analyze yourself so much that it's like very draining.
Oh my, it's all
especially
day.
with new people, because with people I already know, I know what to expect and I know how they work. I know how I work with them. I know what that looks like. But with new people, it's very draining because you're trying to like figure out how that dynamic is.
Totally. I really do not like to go to like influencery events. Like I don't like to go to places by myself. And I think people would think that I'm a really confident extrovert. And it's not about confidence or lack of confidence. It's really exhausting for me to like meet new people and like absorb their energy and try to get them to like me. Or, you know, I just feel like at the end, I'm like, I had not 1% of fun at that.
Exactly. And I went to the one time that I went to an event and I didn't have a +1. It was this year. It was not that long ago.
I will never do it again. I did one time. I'll never do it again.
It was awful. I went up to one girl that I kind of knew when I was like way younger. And she was talking to this other girl and I was talking to them for a while. And then after a while, the girl that I knew just walked away. And then I was left with this girl that didn't know me. I didn't know her. We were just kind of like in this conversation. And I could tell she wanted to like not be talking to me anymore.
No, and they're like looking around the room trying to find like other people.
And I was so mortified because I was like, how do I tell this girl she doesn't need to talk to me? Like, but I could feel the energy from her that she felt like she was babysitting me.
Oh, you're a total empath.
And I was like, oh, I have to go. Like,
yes.
And I left. I was there for like 45 minutes and I was like, I can't stay here anymore.
And you feel weird because you're like, why can other people stay in those conversations? Because they don't hear the other person's internal monologue, you know, like they're not as sensitive to like the other person's eyes moving away and trying to find other people in the room that they'd rather talk to, or, you know, like, and I feel like that's such a hard thing to translate to people that don't get it.
Yeah.
Because you're like, no, I knew she didn't want to talk to me. And someone would be like, oh, but she was talking to you.
And she was saying all the lines that like, I know people... Girl, like, what's your number? Like, we're never going to talk again.
Right.
I can tell by the way that you're not looking me in the eyes that we're never going to speak again. And that's okay.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
But like, let's be real, like for 2 seconds. I went alone to a fashion week event.
Oh.
Which
I went to one of those too, actually.
I don't know why I did it. I really don't. I think I just thought, how bad could it be? And
it's
then I
tough
was
when you're not a fashion girly too. Like when you're not like a New York, like...
No. I don't give
fashion
a
girly.
fuck. Yeah. No, it was awful. Like just the tense conversations. Like no one was having like a fun conversation. Everyone was like, so what were you invited to? Like everyone's like sizing each other up.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe, like I grew up in LA. I'm used to bullshit. LA
bullshit is different than New York bullshit though. Very different.
It is.
LA bullshit is a little more digestible in the sense that like, maybe I'm just more comfortable with it because I like grew up here for the most part, but it's at least like sugar coated a little. In New York, it's just like raw, right to your face. Exactly what I mean like is like, like, what did you do?
Yeah, exactly. I'd rather you be kind of like full of shit and try to make me feel comfortable, you know, than like
or just like don't talk to me at all at that point.
Please, Lord. I was like, I didn't want to be like the bitch on my phone, but I was like, I don't know. I can't like.
Oh, I will always be the bitch on my phone.
Right?
I don't care because if I'm uncomfortable, that's like the only place I can go to.
Where else am I supposed to look? What am I supposed to do with my hands? Like I'm just like
I don't know what
looking
to
around.
do with my hands.
I don't like to go up to a new group of girls. Like if a group of girls is talking, I'm not going to go into that group and be like, hey, you know, I just am not built for that.
No. Me neither.
You know, but that's weird because I think when I say that, I always feel like, but that's not really like symbolic of my personality because I'm way more loud and like all of that. But that's a totally different experience.
It is. And also when you have experiences, when you have bad experiences, it kind of forms the way that you view things. And I think when you're in these cities that are very focused on what you can do or who you are, what you can do for someone else, it's very easy to look at every situation like that.
Yeah.
And that's my struggle because I've had people be so mean until they see my Instagram and then they're my best friend.
Isn't that gross?
And it's so depressing.
Yeah.
It's so upsetting.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like from 13 to now, like nearly 10 years later, Is it hard for you to make friends?
Yeah, but I don't really care anymore. I have the friends that I have, and I know that those people got me. And if those people are busy, like, I'm on my own and I'm okay with that.
I love being by myself.
I love being by
Me too.
myself. Like, I've lived with boyfriends. I've lived with, you know, obviously my family, whatever. I could never go back to, like, until I am married and that's like my life, I could never go back to like coexisting with someone when I don't have to.
So when you look back at like 13, 14, 15-year-old Loren, what was she afraid of? What was the side of her that wasn't shown to social media?
Oh my gosh, everything. I was
Really?
afraid of everything. I was just afraid of being perceived, honestly. And that was it. I was being perceived all the time. And it was exciting because it was everything that I wanted to do. But the part of it that was like, oh, people get to look at you and dissect you and pick you apart. That was really difficult. I also didn't have a very like firm belief in myself yet, which I still don't fully 100% have.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone has like 100% like, fuck yeah, team me vibes.
Oh my God.
If you do, I want to learn. But
Yeah.
I think I just like did not really believe in myself at all. And instead of proving myself to me, I was trying to prove myself to everyone else all the time.
Right.
And I think I was just also scared of the world and everything. I think
Yeah.
most teenagers are like internally freaking out.
Oh, 100%. And by the way, I thought like when you turn 30, you get airlifted into like this higher consciousness. You don't. You're like still, you just are still like that 16-year-old inside on certain days. It is like with every year you get older, I think you just get a little more like, well, this is the body I'm in. This is the face I have. This is the personality I have. You kind of get tired of hating yourself. You know, it does get
You can't do
old.
it forever.
Yeah.
And I feel like you get more comfortable with yourself. And then
Totally.
I also feel like the older you get, the more you know. And that's I mean, this is going to sound kind of weird, but the older I get, I feel like the more capable I am.
Yeah.
Because you learn things like, why do I know how to change a garbage disposal? But I do. And I could do that. And I know how to do things around my house. I know how to do things on my own that I've like always needed help. And those kind of things are like, even the littlest things like that are empowering.
Totally.
And the more experiences, the more you prove to yourself like, hey, I got this. I'm handling shit. I'm doing the thing.
Yeah.
The more confident you are.
100%. My therapist once said to me, self-esteem is built from doing esteemable acts.
Oh,
And
wow.
like that can be changing the garbage disposal. It can be like anything, but I feel like the more that you prove to yourself and show up for yourself. And also you just meet more people and you're like, wow, you really are inept socially, or you really like, you just realize that no one else has it figured out, which is hard because then we scroll online and we're like, we create these narratives about the people that we see and how perfect they are and all the ways that they have what we want, you know, and it's really hard. But I watched your interview with Trisha Paytas. That was in March, right?
I don't know. I'm really bad at timelines.
This year at some point.
Yes.
I'm curious because you were so open. I want to know that night how you felt, and then how did you feel once it came out and like now that it's been in the world for a little while?
Oh my gosh, I was panicking. On my way home, that night, I came home and my boyfriend was there and he was like, how was it? Whatever. And I was like, too much. I was like, can't talk. And we ended up going for a drive and I was just like so paranoid and so like freaking out. And then when we got the cut for approval, I was like, I'm not watching it. I'll tell you the things that I said that I don't want in there. And like, please, for the love of God, make sure they're not in there.
Yeah.
But I can't watch this, but I still haven't watched it. And I can't. I can't watch it.
So there was stuff that was cut out even.
Yeah, there were certain things that I just didn't feel like, because sometimes I only wanted to share things from my perspective.
Right.
And I started saying things from like my parents, and that's not my story to tell. So I wanted to like leave everyone out of it except for me. But yeah, I started panicking big time.
About which part mostly?
Oh my gosh, like all of the like traumas from when I was younger that I had never really like fully addressed the scope of. That was really intimidating. And I'm not sure why necessarily, because those are things that I've sat with for so long. Like, they're not fresh, but still, like, having that out to so many people was very scary.
Yeah.
And I also feel like I was just very open about, like, the way that my brain works and, you know, me being in so many relationships and all these things that I have been, like, psychoanalyzing myself on for so long. And Trisha's just a very easy person to talk to because I watched her all the time. So I felt like I knew her and I could just talk to her.
Right.
So yeah, everything just came out and I was paranoid.
Yeah. And when you know someone like wants an answer from you, like, you know what kind of shows she's had in the past. So you're like, I'm going to tell you everything.
Right. And I kind of went in mentally prepared to do that because I just had a feeling that's where it was going to go. Not because of Trisha. She was great, but just because of how I feel about Trisha.
Yeah.
And I love her. So I was already kind of like mentally prepared for that going in. And then, but yeah, a lot of people have said really nice things to me since then about it. People who have seen it. And that to me makes it worth talking about.
100%. Yeah. Because I feel like the part, you know, like when you're talking about like the sexual assault and things that are really heavy and serious, and I'm sure you feel differently about all of that every day.
Every day.
Right? I feel like when you're open about, because you were open about that on TikTok before you were on that show.
Yeah.
But it's a different medium. It's a different thing. Like, you have to elaborate on a podcast.
And it's someone else's audience as well.
Yes.
So it's like, you don't know how other people are going to receive that. That aren't necessarily like, I love Loren Gray, you know?
Right.
You don't know how that's going to go over.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that you probably made a lot of people feel less alone.
Yeah, and I also think, like, I've had people come up to me in the most interesting places and being like, oh, I saw your interview with Trisha, like, and I appreciate it every time people say it because I was so paranoid about that. So when people, like, kind of to my face or telling me that I did the right thing inadvertently, that felt really good because I was panicked a little bit.
You didn't seem it. I can only imagine what you were feeling internally. I feel like it just felt real and like not rehearsed. It was raw, but it was powerful. It really was.
Yeah, I didn't know I was going to say any of that.
Wow.
I went in prepared to be, like, honest with her.
Yeah.
Because, you know, she's shared a lot of her life and everything that she's been through. So I had a feeling that I was just going to be, like, honest, which I always am, but sometimes I tread a little more lightly.
Yeah.
But I didn't know I was going to go, like, that hard. And I even told her after, I was like, and during the interview, I was like, I am so sorry because I couldn't help it. It was just coming out. And I was like, maybe this is like my cue to like really, really like do some serious therapy if I have this much to say. But I am glad that I said it, and I'm glad I said it in front of her.
No, me too. I think it was really beautiful to see. You know, there's the public perception that you're worried about, but then there's also the people that were actually involved.
Oh my gosh,
right?
yeah.
Like, was that terrifying? Like, because I know you had a miscarriage right after the sexual assault, and did that person know that? Like, were you nervous about them listening?
I really do not. I don't care what that person thinks at all. I don't know where they are. I don't really care what they're doing. And I've never heard anything from them about them, and I don't want to.
Did your parents know?
I don't think they knew the extent. My mom knew much more. It's hard for me to kind of explain because I don't remember most of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they knew, didn't know. I don't really know what they know now. I'm sure my mom knows because she watches the things that I do, but I would say I don't remember much before I was like 15.
Wow.
And my friends from school were over at my parents' house the other day, and we were talking and we were watching Snapchats from when we were like in middle school. And I was like, where was I? They would tell stories and I'm like, where was I when that happened?
Yeah.
And they were like, girl, you were there. And they recall this entire story and I'm like, I have no idea.
Yes.
So
it's kind of like a disassociation.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like I'm lying about things when I talk about them because I'm not like presently there. But I know things happened. It's all very fuzzy.
Totally. I relate to that because I think when you've been traumatized in any capacity, like that's a natural thing that happens. Like I joke with my friends, I'm like, I have the worst memory, but at night or like, you know, just in my private time, I'm kind of like, I don't know that that's just bad memory. I think that is some sort of like my brain trying to protect me from remembering.
There's also things that have happened that I've like been like, oh, that must have been like, that didn't happen. Or like I try to convince myself like it's a dream or something. And then I kind of over time forget. But I remember things, especially from that time period where all of that was happening, as like pictures. And I don't have like, you think about it like a camera roll, I don't have like videos of things happening. I have like images of things that are all very sporadic, and I could never piece it together for the life of me.
That's so real.
You know?
I feel that so much. They're pictures, not videos.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like, did I experience that? Because it's like you feel like out of your own body.
Yeah. And I see like, if I could put my brain on to like, if I could like take a picture out of my brain and lay it in front of me, I would not be able to piece together how things happened. So I have a picture in my head of like the TV when things were happening. I have a picture in my head of like sitting on the couch. I have all of these different images, but none of it forms a cohesive picture.
Right. I always felt like, okay, you know, when I'm 5 years old, of course I don't have like a video of image in my brain. I have like a picture. But then you get older and older and older and you realize other people remember in video.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, wait. There's something weird about my brain here.
Yeah. And I had that realization when my friends were over the other day because they were like, they were both recounting this story.
Yeah.
So like with such detail. And I was like, was I there? They're like, yeah, we were right here. We were in the basement. I was like, what?
Yeah, hearing stuff about yourself. You're like, what? It's crazy.
And I feel so stupid, but I'm asking them like, how was I? What did I say? What was I like?
It's like if you blacked out like at a party and you're like, was I okay? Did I say something crazy?
Yeah, it's the same because I just don't know. I don't even know what I was like or what I was saying or like I have no idea.
Totally. No, that I feel like that's so real. But I loved in that podcast, but just in general, how open you are about the relationships that you've been in. And you've said, or maybe other people have said, that you're a serial dater. And I find that so relatable. And I love that you said on that podcast, like you were so desperate to feel safe with someone. Where do you think that came from?
You know, I think that is just a result of feeling very isolated. And I never really felt like I had someone who is, I mean, I have my parents and they're lovely. They're incredible. But
no one was going through what you went through. Like, who did you have to relate to?
And I almost just wanted someone to like be there for me. Someone who like I could tell everything to. And I did that over and over again. But yeah, I don't really know. And I've tried to figure it out. I think I've also just been like, I've always looked for validation in people. So like who I surround myself with. And I mean, a boyfriend is always going to tell you or, you know, hopefully tell you how great you are. And until they're not.
Right.
But I was like chasing that feeling, I think, quite a bit.
Yeah. And do you find that does it feel the same when it's from someone in person as it does online? Or is there like, does it feel better when it's in your real life?
Well, I definitely think it feels better like when it's in my real life.
Right.
Because I feel like I have someone who's like there to like, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, no, I get that. No, I think you're explaining
and
it
it's
really
kind
well.
of a selfish, like, I think in the past, like kind of a transactional thing for me and not in like a surface transactional way, but like, I'll give you whatever you want if you'll just like
love me.
Yeah. And, you know, I think like I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't have a lot of, and like my first boyfriend that I had was like my best friend and we were like this. And then after we broke up, I was like, okay, I need to find the next one. Then after that, I was like, okay, I need to find the next one.
Right.
And it always just kind of like happened. I don't know.
Yeah. And how long was the longest stretch that you've been single?
A year.
Yeah. I mean, a year's that's decent.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like some people just don't break up with someone until they have the next person lined up sometimes.
I would be like, but I had like a 2-year relationship and then a 3-year relationship and then another year-long relationship. So I was just going from like, and I feel like I also am the type of person that needs someone to like give myself to. Like I need someone to be there physically that I can like pour myself into.
Yes, and take care of.
Yes. So when I don't have that, sometimes I'm like because I like to look, my mom and I are the same way. We like to look everywhere but inward. So like, I'll take care of anyone. I'll help anyone except for myself. And then when it comes to myself, I'm like, I don't know what to do with this.
Right. Because like you can distract yourself by like having a project that is
Yeah, it's like
person.
distracting yourself from yourself. But yeah, I'm trying to keep that.
No, I mean, it is hard. I feel like we all do it to some extent. But when you were in those relationships and they were, you know, maybe your friends and family thought this is not good. I'm just curious, even from like my own experience and having friends and family or people that I think they're not with the right person or like that is a bad person. Did you ever listen to anyone else? Or like, do you feel like, I don't know, whenever, like, I think I have a weird perspective on it. 'Cause sometimes I'm like, everyone has to have the dignity of their own path. And like, they have to realize when they realize it's a lot like addiction. They have to want to get help. They have to want to not be in that relationship anymore. Right. But then I have other friends that are like, you need to tell them that you don't like that person, you know, but I'm like, in your experience, has that ever worked?
I think when my parents have had something to say, right, that's always been a big one for me because I trust their judgment. They know me better than anyone and they have no other motive other than wanting what's best for me.
True.
So that I usually take pretty seriously. And my friends, like if my friends don't like someone, I'm like, okay.
Yeah. That's what I always feel like is, are they competitive with you? There could be an ulterior motive or something.
And I also, have you ever done like an Enneagram test?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was a 6. And the only reason I bring it up is because when I read that, I was like, oh my God, it's me. And I'd never felt so seen because a lot of it was talking about not trusting your own judgment and relying on other people's judgment to make decisions for you.
Right.
And I do that a lot because I don't trust, like I told you, my memory is really bad. I don't trust myself a lot of the time. And so I rely on the people around me to help me form my opinions, which is not a great thing all of the time.
But probably is probably part of what makes you successful online because you're like a consensus seeker.
Yes. I like knowing what everyone thinks and before I do something. And that's something I've always sort of taken into account. But I'm also because I am that way and because I've been in relationships where people are like, why are you with this person? And I still continue to be with that person. I still do that. I feel like I'm more empathetic to when other people are going through things because my friends are lovely. I have great friends, but they'll be like, girl, I can't talk to you about this anymore. Like, you got to put this down. And until you do that, like, I don't want to hear about it. And someone that I know, one of my friends who's older, just found out that like her boyfriend of like 4 years has been cheating on her. He had a whole other girlfriend and all these things. And she's still with him. And I was like, you know what? That's your decision to make.
Totally. 100%.
And you're allowed to vent and you're allowed to be upset and you're allowed to like say things that should probably make me hate this person and then go back to them because I'm not there. I'm seeing half the picture.
Totally.
I'm seeing you when you're upset and you're hurt. And I'm not saying she should be with him, obviously, if he's cheating on her. But also, like, I'm not in her heart. I'm not in her head. Yeah. And, like, as long as she's doing what's best for her, like, everyone needs someone who's going to support them. Of course, tell them when something's seriously wrong and whatever. But I think sometimes people are too quick to pass judgment and be like, oh, my God, you're so dumb. How could you do this? But then when you're in the situation, and she was one of those people to me that was like, I can't believe you're still talking to him. I can't believe. And then this time I'm like, you know what?
Right. And you were able to be like the bigger person because I agree with you. I think it's like you said, you don't know everything, but also you don't want them to shut off from you. You know, you don't want them to feel like they can't tell you the scary things or the bad things. Like you want to be like, I love you regardless of this decision that you make.
Right. And I told her, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm really, really sorry that this happened to you. This really sucks. Why am I over here feeling let down by her by her boyfriend? I'm like, why did you do that to us?
That makes you a good friend.
But I was like, I get it though. You got to have someone who's willing to support you, even if you're not doing what they would want you to do. And of course, still tell you like, hey, that's not cool that he did that. Like, maybe let's have higher standards for ourselves. But still, if you love them, you love them. Like, I'm not in the
Yeah.
relationship.
And like your job as their friend is to just love them and be there and like
Because I've been in situations where I've hid things from people and not told people things. And I've had boyfriends like sneaking in my house, like so that no one sees.
right.
Because I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to be like that person. So I don't want to be that way to other people.
I
you know?
totally agree with you.
And there's a line.
Yeah,
There is a line. Like if
there's
someone's
abuse
hurting
and-
you or
yes.
like that's different.
Absolutely.
But
yeah, and you never know like what people are going through. Like you can be preaching that they should be in the best relationship possible, but then you got to look at yourself and be like, what am
Yes.
I doing wrong? I do a lot of shit to cope.
exactly.
We're all just trying to get by. But I love when you were talking about October 2019 and you
Oh
were
my
like,
God.
you're like, I shudder at the thought. I heard someone say the other day, hit rock bottom as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
And I feel like that is so real. Like I hit rock bottom. I'll probably hit a few rock bottoms, but like I hit a rock bottom probably 2017.
Mhm.
And I was like 22 or 23. And I was just a mess. I was like on so much Xanax because I was so fucking anxious, having panic attacks all the time. Like my life was just falling apart, the whole 9 yards. And at the time, I was so terrified. You know, when you're in your 20s, you just feel like that's the oldest you're ever going to be, you know, and you don't have any perspective. And now I look back on that and I'm like, thank God I fell so hard when I did.
Mhm.
As horrible as it was, and as much as I like really don't want to remember it, and as much as I like try to push it away as much as I can, and I hate that other people remember it or remember me at that time, I'm so grateful because like I had so much growing up to do in like that small amount of time in like my early formative years. Is that how you feel about that time, or do you still feel like you're running from it?
No, absolutely. I think that I'm glad that I've had all of the experiences that I've had
Yeah.
in my life because I think do I wish sometimes that none of it had happened and I could just live in like an ignorant bliss?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do I think it gave me more empathy for other people? Yes. Do I think it made me more cautious? Yes. Do I think it made me more accepting of like other people and how they may feel and how I feel like it gave me more depth that I don't know that I otherwise would have had, especially in light of everything great that's happened in my life. I think it's made me appreciate it more. It's made me appreciate all the good people in my life more. So I don't want to say I'm grateful that bad things have happened to me, but I think my life has happened exactly how it did. And my dad was talking to me the other day and he's like, I'm sorry if you ever felt like I wasn't like, I didn't know how to like parent you really. Like and of course, like when he was not in California, when he was in Pennsylvania, like he would only see me for little bits at a time and he didn't want those like few times to be negative or him like whatever. And I was like, Dad, everything that's happened in my life has happened exactly the way that it was supposed to and has made me exactly the person that I am. And I like who I am.
Yeah.
And I don't look back at anything with any ill feelings, and never at my parents. Oh my gosh. I was like, how could you say that? All I do is talk about how great you are. But I think everything is works out exactly how it's supposed to, at least in my experience.
No, totally. I think you touched on this a little earlier, but I feel like this in my own life. But, you have this childhood, you have your parents, and they are flawed individuals. They just are. They're like, we are going to be flawed when we have kids, or, they're just people that are trying to figure it out as they go. But there are parts of their adulthood that are also part of your childhood, right? And your story. And I think with like being public or having a podcast or just, being on TikTok, whatever it is, there's a internal battle, at least for me, that's like, whose story is that? Is that their story? And am I entitled to tell that story because I experienced it? And like, is it my story, because like I was there and it was like part of the fabric of my upbringing. Do you ever feel like you're not entitled to talk about their shit?
Yes, all the time. Also, especially when it comes to my parents, they've never been anything but great. And like, they're people and they're not perfect. And I also remember like figuring that out, that my parents didn't know everything, and it like blew my mind because
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah, I'd always idolized them both in different ways. Like my dad is so smart. like so smart and so empathetic. And my mom is like so fierce and like so independent and so capable. And I mean, yeah, they each have their own like stories, and they're both very like inspiring and impressive. But yeah, that's not my story. My story is like who I am.
Totally.
And I think that I'm pretty cool as a result of who they are. So that's nothing that I could ever speak on negatively.
When we talked about all these relationships and things like that, and I don't know like how much attachment styles resonates with you, but I'm just always so curious about people that have such a public platform and the relationship that there is like with their audience, right? Like, do you fear, maybe it's just when you're in a dark place and you feel bad about yourself or something, do you fear that they'll leave? Do you fear that it'll all end? Or are you scared of them leaving?
I think I used to be. I think there's always going to be a little bit of that. And it's not so much like, I don't know. I just really appreciate even the like online relationships that I have with like fans and things like that. But people grow and people change and people like different things. So I don't want to like live in the fear of like, oh my God, what if they all leave tomorrow? Because I'll still be me and I'll still be a whole person, and you know, it'll be okay. But it is something that I cherish.
Yeah.
And it is something that I like appreciate and love as a big part of my life.
But you don't feel like you have to keep proving your worth?
Not so much anymore. I think the longer that I do it and the more I've been around, the more I'm just grateful for the people that are there. And that's kind of all you can do.
Totally. And you're building your life outside of just that world, you know? So you have like your acting career and your music and all these other things that add to.
Yeah. And it's impossible. Like you can't please everyone. And it's to worry about and stress and be anxious about things that you can't control or things that haven't happened it's sometimes like on a smaller scale, it's a motivator, but if you let it consume you, it
will crush
you. It will. And then you start to ruin your own self-esteem and your own perception of yourself. And that's not what anyone wants. So, I think a healthy amount of worry is nice, but like not letting it consume especially when it hasn't happened.
Right. Like I think there's a fine line between self-deprecation, but also like just there's a fine line between self-awareness and self-annihilation.
Right.
You know?
It's important to be self-aware. It's important to want more for yourself always. But it's also equally important to be like, I can't do shit about shit in that situation. And I just got to take it as it comes and deal with it to the best of my abilities.
I love that. I think that's incredible advice and insight. Lastly, I just want to, because I just feel called to this because I've gotten several DMs this week. I don't know what's in the air.
Okay.
Of like people, like we talked about, like hitting their rock bottom or like whatever it is, just going through a really shitty time. And I was thinking about myself when I was going through it. And I wonder, like, what would you tell the version of you that thought this would be forever and that you were broken in some capacity? Like, what would you say to the girl that was going through October 2019?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the obvious answer is that like things got better.
Because you don't think they're gonna when you're going through
and
it.
it's like it's an ebb and a flow and it's ups and downs, and that is life. And I'm sure I'll hit rock bottom again and then again and then again until I die. And there's no way to look at it in the moment. But if I could go back and be like, this is character development. This is like
for the plot.
This is for the plot. And this is moments like these prepare you for who you're supposed to be and who you're going to be. And obviously in the moment, you're never going to, even like I say this and then I'm going to go home and be like, not following my own advice. But in hindsight, it's always nice to know, like if I could go back there and know what I know. I think about this all the time with school. I'm like, if I could go back to school, knowing what I know now, like things would be so different. But you don't have that. You wouldn't have that knowledge without going through that experience blindly. So I think everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Everything happens the way it's supposed to. And I think even in the moments where you don't know that that's the case, you're not supposed to know that that's the case because it's happening as it's meant to.
No, exactly. those dark moments were more formative than any happy moment I ever had. You know, like added to my personality in a more rich, multi-leveled way. You know, like it just makes you have so much more depth and awareness, and like you can relate to another person.
Right.
You know, except for at those influencer events.
Yeah, sometimes I'm just like, man. And even when people are not the nicest, even when people seem like, oh my God, you're so vapid. I'm sure people have looked at me before when I'm like on my phone and like
probably me too,
anxious and stressed, thinking like, oh my God, what a bitch.
Right. Because they don't know what's going on internally.
So in those moments, like, I don't know what they're going through. They don't know what I'm going through. I think if everyone just like let their guard down a little bit and also like stopped caring so much, then I think everyone would be so much happier, especially in moments where people are trying to prove themselves. I think, you know, if you're in a room, you deserve to be there. And that's that.
Thank you so much for doing this. This was like a great therapy heart-to-heart sesh.
Yay, I'm glad. That's what I do.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Bye, guys.